Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a deep dive into the world of college admissions.
My name is Jennifer Mandel. I am a college coach with School Match for You and an assistant principal in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am the parent of 3 boys, all business majors. 1 is a recent college graduate and 2 are currently in college.
I'm Mark Stucker, and I'm the founder and producer. Our mission is to make college knowledge available to all. We care deeply about your kid. We believe college is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. We believe in being genuine and transparent. We are committed to covering a variety of topics, including the tough subjects. Thanks to your generosity, we're committed to providing a minimum of 10 hours of fresh, commercial-free content every month, with episodes every Monday and Thursday. We have a variety of co-hosts because we believe and value diverse perspectives. You're our listening family, and we get great joy every time we meet with you as we do our best to give you tools so your students can soar and reach their limitless potential. Good morning, friends. If you're new to the Your College Bound Kid podcast, our mission is to make college knowledge available to all. And we do that primarily by delivering 2 episodes of commercial-free content every week, Mondays and Thursdays. One is close to an hour and a half, though I'm not a stickler on that anymore, and one's closer to an hour. We also have a group, Counselors Connect, to support our college counselors out there with more professional development. And we do occasionally do in-person greetings, meet and greets. And we have 2 coming up, our 9th and our 10th of our South Florida gathering. That's Thursday, February 19th, 6 p.m. And our Colorado event, that is on April 8th at 6 p.m. See our events page at yourcollegeboundkid.com to sign up. We'd love to see you there. So, friends, on today's episode, Jennifer Mandel, college coach from Milwaukee who works with me at School Match for You, will join me to discuss college parent Facebook groups. Jen has been involved in 3 different groups at 3 different colleges in 3 different states. So you're going to want to hear what she has to say. And then our final part will be the Peter Pitts, also known as the Small College Guy. And we'll be talking about his book, Small College Magic, and just talking about small colleges in general. And, I have to ask him some tough questions, so I do that in this segment. But before we do that, I do want to say a word about the batch of decisions that colleges have released in the last 7 days. So a lot of the big schools, the public flagship and land-grant schools, they were out with their decisions, especially for out-of-state. More and more schools are going to this 2-tiered thing where they release their in-state decisions earlier and then their out-of-state decisions a little later, and I expect that trend will continue. There's a lot of good reasons for colleges to do that. You show deference to your in-state students, and you also help your workflow, your management. If you can put off a lot of the decisions a month to 6 weeks later or so, it gives you more time in the reading room. But I just want to give you an example of, something like we saw. So had 5 very strong out-of-state applicants to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill this year. 1 got in, 4 got denied. Now, denies always sting a lot more. But when I sat down with UNC in their offices in 2024, they told me that they admitted 6% out of state, deferred 3%, denied 91%. So you name me another college in the country that denies 91%. You know what? You're not going to find one because there isn't. Not MIT, not Stanford, not Harvard, none of them. And so I shared that. This is all through text because my kids always text me when all the decisions come out. And every one to a person of the 4 that didn't get in said, that is so encouraging. So I just want to share some data from our company, School Match for You, that I founded in 2010 about the decisions that we have seen in the last 7 to 10 days. We've gotten good feedback in the past when we've shared data. And so I try to listen, and if you guys like something, I try to come back and do it again. It's not a small company. It's not a huge, super large company. There's a mid-sized company. So we see a lot of decisions. Some of the schools I'm going to share, we had between 20 and 29 applications to. So First, I want to share the 7 public schools that I regard as the most difficult ones to get in out of state. Now, every now and then I really share data. I remember 3 years ago, I went over like the 30 hardest schools and the 70 hardest schools to get into. I was going to rank these, the 7 hardest to get into, but I can't do it yet because I'm still waiting on the UCs to release their decisions. But so these are not in any order from hardest, most hard to least hard. They're all just very, very hard out of state. And so what are those 7? UCLA in Westwood, that's a section of Los Angeles. UVA, University of Virginia, Charlottesville. UNC, University of North Carolina, right in Chapel Hill. Georgia Tech, right here where I'm at, here in Atlanta. Berkeley, right in Berkeley, California, UC Berkeley, University of Texas, Austin, and the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Those 7 are the hardest to get into from our data. Now, there are another 8 that are not quite as hard as the first 7, but every year we see kids who don't get into these 8, but they get into one of the first 7 because this next 8 are really tough. So which 8 am I referring to? University of Wisconsin-Madison, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, University of Georgia in Athens, University of Florida in Gainesville. Now, those 4 are all flagship schools for the state. Then we have Florida State, also in the south, Tallahassee. And then 3 more of the UCs, UCSD, UCSB, UCI. That's UC San Diego, La Jolla, UC Santa Barbara, and UC Irvine and Irvine. 5 years, for example, let me just give you a few examples. So for 5 years in a row, in School Match for the company I founded, we have seen a kid get in to the University of Michigan out of state that does not get into Wisconsin. 5 years in a row, we've had at least one. It's weird. I don't think it's ever been 2. It's always 1, but we always have 1. 3 years in a row, we've seen a kid not get in Georgia, but get in Michigan. So that's 3 straight years. And then you have to take a look at the role college major can play because it can be really significant. And some schools are just really tough. For example, this year I saw a student, top 1% of his class. I know what some of you are thinking. How do you know? Because it's Texas and Texas ranks. So top 1% of the class, big school, almost 800 students, did not get in UT Austin. Austin admits by major, and they ask you to rank your top 3 majors. So, didn't get into any of the top 3 majors, two of which were engineering majors. Did not get in Georgia Tech, top 1% of the class. All right. This year, I saw something happen that was new for us. An in-state student from North Carolina doesn't get into NC State, but gets into Georgia Tech, out of state. So why? What's going on? Well, there are another 5 universities, according to our data, where certain majors are just brutal. So UW in the West, University of Washington, 2% admit rate for computer science, by the way, 2%, 1 out of 50. But last year, for example, I had a student from Southern California who didn't get into San Diego State or any of the UCs that, got into Santa Cruz, but didn't get into, Irvine and Santa Barbara, San Diego, wasn't interested in Berkeley, UCLA, and gets into UW because of a different major. Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, they admit by major. They can be brutal. When I sat down with them, 12% admit rate for aerospace, 13% for computer science. But sometimes I'll see kids get in there out of state with multiple C's on their transcripts in 10th and 11th because of the major. North Carolina State in Raleigh, they can be brutal. It's kind of a school that surprises people because they know like Duke is tough and they know that UNC is tough. Most of them know Wake Forest is pretty tough. They're looking at smaller liberal arts. They know Davidson's tough, but they don't necessarily know that NC State is tough. If you're an in-state resident in North Carolina, you know this, but if you're not, you don't necessarily know it. But once again, very, very major dependent. So engineering, brutal. They're a powerhouse in engineering. Remember, UNC doesn't have engineering. Comp sci, probably the hardest major, even that comp sci apps are dropping. But mechanical and aerospace and biomedical, I remember having an in-state student probably, this is not even new. This is about 7 years ago. Yeah, because the student's about to get a PhD now. But I remember an in-state student, 1580, didn't get into NC State engineering. Massive merit scholarships at other schools all across the country, by the way. So that's one, super major dependent. They have other majors that are tough. Poole College of Management, that's business, finance, marketing, really tough. College of Art and Design, kind of be really tough because there's portfolios required for some of those programs. Architecture, graphic design, it can be really tough. Fashions, textile management can be tough. And then animal science, because it's got one of the absolutely tough, top-notch veterinary medicine programs in the country. So NC State can be really tough. And then sometimes even surprisingly, like College of Natural Resources, certain majors in there can be tough. And that's getting a lot tougher. Maryland, forget it, for computer science, also getting a lot tougher for certain majors. But other majors you see a big disparity in. Virginia Tech, that's one of the schools where I see one of the biggest differences by major. Once again, similarities, right? A lot of these schools that admit by major, they can be really tough. So I'll give you an example. I had a student I was working with last year. Okay, aerospace, interested in aerospace. This is an in-state Northern Virginia student. So they get into Purdue, they get into Florida. They don't get in Virginia Tech as the in-state student. So that's one that's really major dependent. And I don't know, it's tough to label Virginia Tech. I think of Virginia as the mid-Atlantic, but Virginia Tech has much more of a southern feel than like Northern Virginia. So in some ways, you know, whether you want to call it the start of the South or the bottom of the mid-Atlantic, it feels a lot more southern to me, just with the large number of cadets and just the culture. And of course, the University of Colorado in Boulder for business and especially for engineering, it's just a completely different standard for who is competitive for applications to CU Boulder. Hey, friends, after I recorded this episode, I went to the kitchen to make a veggie omelet. And then all of a sudden, these thoughts started popping in my head. Like, Stuck, are you kidding me? You never mentioned Purdue. You never mentioned Minnesota. You never mentioned Penn State. You never mentioned UMass Amherst, to name others. All of these schools, engineering, business, nursing, are tough. So I don't want you to think of this last list of by major as an exhaustive list. I'd rather you just assume as the default position, if it's your public flagship school and they have business, engineering, comp sci, nursing, and if a major plays a role in how they admit, you can just expect those are going to be tough. Vermont, Connecticut, whatever the school is, public flagship schools, business, engineering, nursing are going to be tough. Hope that helps. So there you go. Those are a number of schools that are really tough to get into, and a number that have real significant disparity between how tough some majors are to get into than others. Now, in most of these schools where major comes into play, and I have to say that because you take a place like Georgia doesn't care about major. So, you know, it can be like you can get into business or engineering there. It may not be as hard as some of the others because they're not using the major or college rubric to decide as a filter like most of the other schools are. But in general, when major matters, engineering, computer science, nursing, business, architecture, going to be really tough. Now, I'm still gathering more evidence on this, but it appears to me that engineering at these flagship schools and those that restrict out-of-state admission was harder this year. I have a couple theories on it. This is, once again, just my conjecture. I think one of them has to do with the fact that computer science apps are dropping around the country, like in some places by 40%. And I think some of those are going into engineering. But I also think the value proposition. I mean, you can be looking at paying $40 to $70K instead of $80 to $105K. And a lot of times these schools are the most well-known ones for engineering. And then you get, football fraternities, all of that stuff. Football fraternities fun at less cost. I think that's playing a factor as well, making public schools more attractive, but especially engineering. I really noticed it this year. Seats were tight, and and I'm in a couple networking groups, and I'm not the only one who experienced this. I saw it really, UIUC was definitely tougher this year. There's no question about it, out of state. Wisconsin, I would say as well, too. just to name a couple. NC State, third. So I mentioned ones that restrict out of state. So what am I referring to? Well, this is a scenario that is really common. You are paying a lot of taxes right now to support your state institution. And when you're paying a lot of taxes and your own kid can't get into your own state institution, people speak up. Politicians hear that, and then policies get put in place by Board of Regents, Board of Governors, who dictate the policies of public colleges in a way that they don't for the private schools in the state. So then what happens? They impose pretty strict caps on the number of out-of-state students that can come to the school. So let's just take a look at the hardest publics that I mentioned earlier to get into based on our data. UCLA, they got to take 82% in state. UVA, they got to take 2/3 in state. UNC, 82%. Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia's a little different. There are states that have strictly imposed policies with strict fines. And then there's other places like Georgia that want to get ahead of the curve. And before they have strict guidelines imposed on them, they impose their own guidelines on themselves. So Georgia Tech does 60% from Georgia, 30% out of state, 10% international. Georgia does 80-20. All right, Berkeley, 82% in-state. Texas, 90-10. Michigan, 51-49. 51% in-state, 49 out. By the way, used to be 2/3, Michigan. So that was a big move to take more out-of-state students, but they still very intentional. And then when you look at that next state that are really competitive, a lot of them have guidelines that they have to adhere to. Wisconsin wants 45% from Wisconsin, which you might think, 45%, that's not that much. Yeah, but Wisconsin's not one of the 10 largest states in the country. So the overwhelming number of their strong applicants are going to be coming out of state. I mean, when I sat down with UNC, they were looking at 65,000 out-of-state applications. It's a lot for 18% of the spots. All right. And then Illinois, they usually shoot for like 70% in state. I mentioned Georgia already. Georgia's doing 80-20. Florida, 90-10. Florida State's gotten a lot more competitive because they also have the 90-10. UCSD, 82-18. And then UCSB, UCI, they got to take in the 80s from California. So it makes it tough for these schools if you're applying to them and they're already super popular and you're trying to get in as an out-of-state applicant. Not all schools function this way. Some public colleges want out-of-state revenue. They're actually easier for out-of-state admits. An example that comes to mind is San Diego State University in San Diego. Much easier to get in out-of-state than in-state. So just keep in mind the information I shared with you today was for these 15 to 20 of the most competitive colleges for out-of-state students. So friends, you might be wondering, why are you telling me all this? Well, one, because in the past you've told me you find this kind of data interesting. But I'm going to tell you my real motive, because the timing is intentional. It's because a lot of people are hurting because they didn't get into these schools. And the last week, just take a look at all of these schools. Almost every single school I mentioned, there released decisions in the last 7 to 10 days. And I didn't even mention all the others. And by the way, there are also lots of private schools, that came out with their decisions too. But, and I've said this to you once before, if you're on a boat and it feels like it's sinking, it's very distressing. It's very stressful. But when you find out there's others on the boat, all of a sudden you feel like there's help and you feel like there's hope. So I just share that data with you because if your student is one of the ones that didn't get into one of those schools and you kind of feel sucker punched in the gut, just know that you're not alone. But now is the time to do a couple things. Now is the time to fall in love with the schools that you haven't heard from yet. But most importantly, to fall in love with the schools that you've been admitted to already. We always say, love the school that loves you back. In other words, learn to celebrate and appreciate where you're already in. All right, friends, let's transition to my interview with Jennifer Mandel on college Facebook groups for parents. Are they good or are they toxic?
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Now, friends, I recorded this segment with Jen before she heard the conversation on Thursday about Facebook groups. She's heard that since then, but she hadn't at the time I recorded this. But I still think her comments dovetail extremely well with Thursday's podcast. So, Jen, there's a second reason I want you to come on, and the timing is really good for this. So our regular listeners are going to hear a recording I just did. My days are running together. So Jen and I are recording this literally on Saturday, the 24th, and it'll go live on Monday, the 26th. So I did a recording 2 days ago. Maybe it was even yesterday. Sorry. Getting the days mixed up. It was either yesterday or the day before. It was with Kate and Hillary, and it's in the news, and it's on parent Facebook groups. But I wanted to just get your opinion as someone who I regard as very balanced. You're not like an over-the-top parent. I know that. I worked with your oldest son, Oliver. You really let him drive that process. You chimed in and you were in the loop, and you stayed in the communication loop, but you were a model of letting your student drive the process. So, we kind of have a pros and cons discussion of Facebook groups and parent Facebook groups. So from your perspective, what are your thoughts on parent Facebook groups? Are you all pro? Are you, in between? I mean, tell me what your thoughts are on parent Facebook groups.
I think if you're talking about parent Facebook groups specifically to that institution,
yes,
I think they can be helpful. It depends. It's almost like the culture of the school. There's a culture within the group. Again, I have 3 boys, 3 different universities, and all of the Facebook groups were different. One wasn't overly involved. There wasn't a lot going on there. One of them is not, the culture on there, they have not only parents, but alumni. And then it seems like on all these Facebook groups, it should be just parents, but other people squeak through. My guess is that a university representative is monitoring the page, but truthfully, they're doing so many other tasks that they can't monitor all these fake people that get in posing as parents that aren't parents. So you get in, you have all these other people that aren't parents, former parents, alumni, and so you get a wide, like on my one son's page, you get a wide variety of people that are not in the shoes of parents. And honestly, I don't think it's a very nice culture in that group. They attack parents, I think, quite honestly, for asking some parent questions. And, as a seasoned mom of 3 students that are older, I may not have the questions as a first-time parent going through it. So I have empathy of a parent walking in as a first-timer, asking questions that maybe somebody who has been through it multiple times may be like, well, that's kind of a dumb question. I see it as, well, they're a first-time parent. And the culture of that group can be really mean and hostile. And in fact, the university is trying to up their parent game. And I actually put that on their feedback saying, like, if they have room for improvement, it would be to kind of cut off that page and really weed out to just keep it to parents, because the group is just, it doesn't leave room for people to ask questions and be vulnerable. Usually the people that respond in there are just not nice. So I say advice to something is read the room a little bit, see how parents are responding before you put yourself out there. Then I'm in another Facebook group for another institution, and the parents are great. They're friendly. They're nice. Obviously, I'm sure there's some mean talk, but generally they're pretty nice. Sometimes, personally, I know when to step back. Some parents sometimes will be over the top about, maybe upset about things that I personally just don't see as my role to get upset about. Like, that's my child's job if they're upset about.
Well, let me follow up on that, because that's the whole concern in the article that we discuss.
Gotcha.
It's not just the helicopter, the snowplow. It's the parent that expects, to be talking with the college about everything and to be included in the loop. And they're coming and voicing opinions there. It's that over the top. I mean, something you and I have talked about quite a bit, not in the context of Facebook groups, but just parents who just cannot let go. And then they take that to the college and they're flying up there and they're meeting everybody and they're very offended when they're not given access. And and they steamroll, and like that's kind of what the article is looking at, that as the negative side of it. Do you see that in the groups?
I do. I do.
Okay.
At a certain college, I do.
What does it look like?
I mean, you'll see. Yeah, you can see. And I don't even know what the issue is because I just kind of don't care. It's just not my issue. But you'll see, I don't know, maybe say advising that somebody deems as bad or something. Well, I'm going to call the university. Who do we call? And, the university should do A, B, and C. Now, I don't work at a university, but I know darn well the university does not need to do A, B, and C. And if your child isn't upset, there's nothing wrong with talking to your child and say, hey, have you thought about this? Is this concerning? Truthfully, 9 times out of 10, your child is going to have a better finger on the pulse in terms of like whether it's something to be concerned about or not. That's usually the way I approach problems with my kids. It's like, hey, I'm hearing about this. Is this anything? They set me straight. There's no reason to get involved in it, really. It's, if you're trying to solve your kids' problems on issues on something that's not really giant, your kid has like a few years left until they're hopefully out and working. And you want them to develop those skills, and you want to kind of be maybe that whisper in their ear, not the person like leading them and being the voice for them. If they're going to be interviewing for internships junior year, you can't be that person telling the employer. And I've heard of this before where parents are literally trying to negotiate job offers for kids. And that's not our role. We want our kids to be able to have the confidence to be able to hold those conversations. And if we are out there holding those conversations for our students, I don't think we're building the confidence for our children to be able to go out there and hold those conversations, not only with the university, but with peers. If they're having peer conflicts, or any situations in their jobs, like it's our goal to launch our children and to have them be self-sustaining. Yeah, we should be able to give our children advice and have those private sidebars with them to talk to them and give them feedback. But hopefully our kids can read the room and know the context of the situation and take our feedback and decide whether to use it or not. But no, I'm not. The only time I did call recently, my son, as you know, he's studying abroad right now. And I did call the university and I said, I'm sure you gave it to my son, but can you give me the emergency numbers? I was nice. I was polite. I felt like that was a fair request. I want to know who to call if there's an emergency and my son is overseas. And they didn't hesitate. And honestly, he probably had it somewhere in the portal. But no, I don't think that's our role to be barking at colleges. If you have an issue, let your child solve it. Again, there's probably some situations, some unique ones where we do need to get involved, maybe financials. There's probably some times of financials we need to get involved. Maybe, mental health concerns, if it's a matter of like real physical issues with mental health. There probably are a few things, but, we ideally, as much as possible, want to leverage our students to be on top or to be ahead of us, and we are behind them. I don't know if I can be more clear.
Yeah, I think you're very clear. So now I want to have you talk about something that you and I have talked about a lot. It's also something that Kate and Hillary and I have a conversation about. So the student that has ADD or ADHD, the parent level of involvement for that student. Because I know we have talked, and I know for one of your 3, you were more actively involved than you were for the other 2. Right? Because of
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so how did you, and maybe you don't even have to tell me how you did it, but thinking back on it now, where does a parent draw the line if they have a student that they feel this student is not going to do certain things without my intervention versus this other student, they've got that? How does a parent draw the line as to what's appropriate and what's not appropriate? Why don't you just share your wisdom from having one student like that and maybe 2 others that didn't need that, and how you manage them differently.
Right. So, in a perfect world, your child already they can just take off and don't need that, right? But some kids need some of those reminders or those nudges or, those extra supports. And I think it's important for all parents to recognize that, each child is handled differently. There is no firm set of rules that it should be handled exactly this way because each child is different and some need a little extra TLC. The rule that I take is you want to eventually slowly release so that, you can kind of taper off and have your child, again, be independent by the end. Failures are a good thing, right? You want to have safe failures. I would start the failures in high school. Let them fail in high school. Having failures in high school, although it's scary, is a good thing. I mean, we could go on and on about how failures are positive things. We don't want our kids to fail. We don't want them to have giant failures where, it's something that can destroy life-changing things. But failures, they can teach us so many things. So if we let them fail within safe boundaries, kids can learn from that. So they start, if we let them have those experiences, they learn. And then even as a freshman in college, that freshman year can be so heavy with so many new opportunities from the residential living to the academics and everything about that first year in college, letting them experience, you want to give them the support so they're successful. That's the most important thing. But you also want to be able to taper off and still be there to catch them, but allow them to feel like they are confident and they don't need mom or dad in life. They can get out there on their own 2 feet. They don't need mom. They don't need dad to make decisions. They're out there. They got it. And if they make mistakes, if they have questions, it's a phone call. They call mom. They can do that, but they're out on their own 2 feet. You don't want your child relying on you and thinking they can't do it without you. I don't know if that answers your question, but there is no perfect answer.
No, but you said a lot of principles, and I loved what you said about failure being a blessing. It reminds me of a book we've recommended. It's been a couple of years since we've done it. It's called The Blessings of a Skinned Knee. It's by Dr. Wendy Mogo, who's a clinical psychologist. It first came out in 2001, became a bestseller. It's kind of takes on the countercultural approach to raising kids in an era of helicopter parenting. It's kind of built on core Jewish teachings and ethics. I know it's a book that Susan has strongly recommended multiple times as one of her favorite books. And it's an important principle. And I like what you said. It can start in high school, even middle school. Truthfully, it should really start in elementary school, but it's very hard if you don't allow the space for students to explore and to make some mistakes. And it's very hard to just start it in college. So thanks, Jen. I'm going to continue to have you back when you continue to drop these pearls of wisdom in our conversations that I think our listeners need to hear. Thank you for being available. I really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
All right, friends. On Thursday, you'll hear the final part. Kind of did a little bit of a sandwich here. Kate, Hillary, Jennifer in the middle. Back to Kate, Hillary on parent Facebook groups. But now, let's hear the final part of V. Peter Pitts, also known as the Small College Guy, talking about his book, Small College Magic, and quite honestly, just talking about small colleges.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, we've reached the final part of my interview with Peter Pitts. And in part 3, Peter shares some of the big advantages to a small college that often go overlooked. I asked Peter, what should a student do if they visit a college and they think it's too small? Should they take it off their list? Peter and I discuss how size can't only be judged by the number of students at a college. You need to look at other metrics as well. Peter shares one thing he wants listeners to know that we haven't discussed very much. And Peter goes on the hot seat. And then, friends, after the interview, I thought of an important question. So I emailed Peter, and he responds. The question is one I'm sometimes asked by parents. What do I say to the parent who says to me, I don't want my student to go through the rest of their lives explaining to people where they went to college because no one's heard of it? You have to hear how Peter answers this question. All right, listen and enjoy. So what do you see as, and maybe you'll pull off your list here, some of the most overlooked or underrated aspects of the small college that you think people don't think about?
Underrated. I think most people, like when I published a list recently of 123 small colleges with ABET accredited engineering programs,
Right.
most people don't realize that these small private colleges have very strong engineering programs. When they think of engineering, they think of Purdue, they think of Michigan, they think of IU. I mean, they don't always think of Monmouth in Illinois, that sort of thing. So I think that's one. There's another one would have to do with Greek life. I looked at a list of there's a published list from a few years back of the 50 top Greek systems in the United States, and 30 of the 50 were from small private colleges, because the criteria that they used were grade point average and lack of hazing incidents and a few other things like that don't always exist at some of the bigger universities. So there's some really active, Greek life that occurs at the small private colleges, and people don't know that, or they don't think of it. And they don't realize that some really famous and powerful people, like the CEO of Morningstar right now, Kunal Kapoor, he went to Monmouth, Illinois undergraduate, and then went to graduate school at Chicago, University of Chicago. But I mean, the CEOs of major corporations, there was even a president of the United States, Reagan, that went to a small college, Eureka. Parents don't realize that you can really go really cool high places.
Nixon went to Whittier. Nixon went to Whittier. It's another small one.
Yeah, exactly. So people don't realize that, and sometimes when they think, well, you probably have maybe 3 buildings and maybe a couple dorms, and they don't realize there's small colleges with 700 students that have 35 buildings that are as big a campus in terms of geography, as some much bigger universities and such. So there's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of things that people don't realize about small private colleges. I think the naysayers are pleasantly surprised when they come to visit small private colleges and they see what kinds of things are out there. And the same thing in terms of equipment. Like the chemistry department at Monmouth is fantastic. And every year they make a field trip on purpose to the University of Iowa Department of Chemistry to see what they have there, and to do some communication between the departments. And the students come back realizing that the equipment that they have is the same equipment they have in Iowa, because of alumni giving like millions to the school, and they're not lacking anything in terms of equipment compared to what the undergraduates, even graduate students at Iowa, are getting. So people don't realize that the equipment, even at small private colleges, because of alumni donations, can be phenomenal for the student, and they think that you have to go to a big university to get access to that sort of thing. And they don't realize that at the bigger university, you might not get access until your junior or senior year, as opposed to at a small college, your freshman or sophomore year access. Students are sometimes doing graduate level work by the time they graduate from the undergrad, at a small private college. And those are some of the things that just sort of come to my head.
So let me ask you a hard question. I know, in your book, you put a big emphasis on fit, which I'm all about that. I really respect that and appreciate you putting that focus on fit. I don't know if this is how you believe, but I know a lot of people who do the work that we do believe that when you visit a school, trust your instincts. Like, visit a place and trust your instincts. That's common guidance that a lot of us give to students. Okay. Well, I can tell you, as a counselor, there are a lot of times when my students will visit a school and just say it's too small, like after a visit. And so my question is, like, if that's the reaction that somebody has when they visit a place, is your response, you know what? Different strokes for different folks. There's lots of schools out there. Maybe a small college is not for you. Or do you feel like, wait a minute, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, you didn't probably hear about all the things that this small school could have offered you. Like, don't have this reflexive reaction. I'm not talking about people just off of a name. I'm talking about, I I hate to say this, I'll mention a school right now. It's not in your list. It says highly selective. It's Haverford College, 1,300 kids. That's a big problem when my kids visit Haverford College. Now, I have kids at Haverford College who love it. Been involved in sending lots of kids to Haverford, like more than 20 over the years, maybe more than 30. But a lot of people will go there and they'll just say it's too small. Sometimes I'll get that with the Claremont colleges, and maybe it's a little different because they have the consortium there. But when you hear that from a student, do you feel like, I guess it's small college is just not for you, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm just happy they visited.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's better than a person that doesn't visit
Right.
and says, I'm not going to go to a small school. And the one that really upsets me is when they say, I'm not going to go to a college smaller than my high school. That is such a ridiculous statement for students to make, because what they really mean is, I'm looking for certain things that I don't think are at a small college. I think that's what they mean, but they say it the wrong way. But no, I mean, there's a lot of kids that just, once you visit, and if that's not for them, that's not for them. I mean, you're not going to, why waste my time as an admissions counselor trying to twist somebody's arm into something when I can go find somebody who is more amenable to the concept?
I like your answer because you're so passionate about small colleges that I didn't want our listeners to misunderstand you to be saying everybody needs to go to a small college, which is not what you're
heck no.
Which is not
But,
what you're saying. So that was just a way of me trying to hopefully bringing that out of you. So
yeah. Do you remember the chapter in the book about how to make big university into a small college experience for you? And like, if you go to the University of Iowa, I know some of those freshman classes are pretty big. Sit in the front row. Why not? Have a chat with the teaching assistant. Why not? They might be the best teacher you've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many things that you can do at a big university to turn it into what I call a small college, type experience. No, I mean, a lot of people just absolutely positively do not belong. I remember one time there was an inner city kid from Chicago who visited Monmouth, and he visited, and the next day, he did an overnight visit. He was in the dorm, and he goes, I can't go to school here. I go, why? He goes, too many nice people. He says, I can't. He says, I can't take this. He says, people leave their doors open. I go, yeah, they leave their doors open because they're sociable. He goes, no, I lock my door. And so it wasn't for him. I mean, he visited. It just wasn't for him. And a lot of times I used to refer students to other institutions. I used to do a lot of that. And that always comes back to help you as an admissions counselor. You refer people to other places. One of the coolest thank yous I ever had was from a student who, 10 years after he graduated from high school, he called me one day when I was at Walgreens. He goes, I want to thank you. You referred me to a school that changed my life. And I was like, oh, okay. That's one of the
I would
coolest
say the best admission officers are, they don't function like salespeople. They function more like counselors. And they're more concerned about the kid getting the right place than they are with enrolling them at their own institution. The best ones.
I think that's why I was successful in terms of what I did, because you just have to be, you can't be salesman-y with students. You just have to encourage them to at least visit and see what you have. And once they visit, if they're not interested, they're not interested. I mean, there's nothing you can really do to sway people. It's a waste of your time, to do that.
Something that I think is important is the easy shorthand way to evaluate a college is by the number of students. But you can be a small college. I'll mention one that's not very far from where I am. It's not for everybody. For some people, it's going to be too conservative, but for others, it's going to be just what they're looking for. Berry College in Rome.
Yeah.
It's huge, right? I mean, like third most acreage in the country.
Yeah. I thought it was the most. Okay.
Yeah, it's up there. Well, it depends how you count their forest and all that. But then you could be Emerson College, in Boston, and I'll have people go there and they'll be like, it's 2 blocks. And so I think sometimes people make a mistake of just judging size off of people and not feel. And sometimes the campus layout can play a role in that. And certainly the acreage can certainly play a role. Sometimes when students say, I can't go to a school smaller than the high school, what I hear them saying is too many people are up in my business now, and I don't have the level of anonymity that I want to have. And so that's how they interpret it. Like, I don't want to go somewhere where I don't have more of a sense of privacy than I have it right now at my school.
And I hear them a lot of times, so, I'm looking for my people. I'm looking for my people, and I'm not going to be able to find my people in a small college. And my retort to that is, you've got to expand your people. You can't, like when you go to a small college, you can't just have everybody as friends that look and act just like you. I mean, my one boy went to a bigger university, but my younger boy went to Monmouth, and one of his best friends was an international student from Nepal, and he had students from different states of the union that were friends of his, and different nationalities and different ethnicities. If he would have gone to a big university like my older boy did, he graduated with the same 5 male friends that he had in high school. He didn't expand his friendship group at all. So you find your people. What's wrong? What's wrong with expanding your people? I don't want you to graduate from this big university with little clones of yourself, which a lot of times happens.
I am so in the camp of it's different strokes for different folks. Like, I have 2 daughters, 29 and 27. My 29-year-old went to Davidson College, which is a small school outside of Charlotte. Right? She loved it and would do it all over again. My oldest went to the University of Georgia, then got her master's at NC State, and now she works at UNC Chapel Hill. So big college, university. Both of them extremely happy with their choices. Both of them would do it all over again. So that's kind of my outlook, right? It's all about like fit and match and different strokes for different folks. But your point is very well taken. People know the UGAs and the NC States and the Chapel Hills. They're on national TV. They get a lot of fanfare. They don't fly under the radar. It's this other group that can be a complete life-changing hidden gem that people don't even know exists.
Exactly.
Yeah, even as college counselors, I don't know every school that you listed, and I've been doing this for 25 years, and I was looking through your list, and I don't know all those schools that you have listed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Well,
so we're about to wind down. We're about to switch to what I call the lightning round. It's a little lighthearted, non-college stuff. But before we do, is there anything we haven't said about small colleges that you want to leave our listeners with?
Just give us a chance. Just give us a chance.
I like that.
I mean, just keep an open mind and don't make too many false assumptions. That's the best advice that I can give to people. And visit, and don't assume that every small college is like every other. I mean, there are some small colleges that are like very, very, very small that do have only 3 buildings, and they're just there. But there's other places that are pretty darn accepting. Once you get on the campus, and so visit at least a couple just to see what they're like.
I love that. Give us a chance, visit a couple to see what we're like. I think that's perfectly fair. And friends, in order to support what Peter's doing, because I really do believe in it, he has graciously agreed that anytime we take a question from a listener and we air it, if you're interested in his book, he'll send you access to the Kindle version like he did to me and allow you to check it out. And so you'll notice I'm going to have a new recording coming up here by next Monday's episode. And I'm going to have 3 more books on there. And Small College Magic from Peter is going to be one of the 3 books. So now we'll have 7 books for you to choose from when you're selecting the book that you get for sending a question in that we take on the air. So we're excited to have Small College Magic in our list. And I know there'll be some people that will take us up on that, Peter. And by the way, I said for the 20 of you that that participated in our 600th episode by sending in a SpeakPipe message, you're all eligible for any one of these 7 books. So you know how to do it. You can just send me a message at yourcollegeboundkid@gmail.com and indicate the book that you want, and then I'll forward it to the author, and we'll be good to go. And you'll be hearing about the other 2 coming up here in the next few weeks that are going to be new additions to our list.
And there are a couple of the books do not have Kindle versions, so those would be excluded probably.
Yeah, well, the 7 books I'm referring to are Princeton Reviews, giving us 100 books to give away to people that send in questions.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then we have exciting homeschooling book that we'll be discussing, and then another one about basically how to go through this college process and not lose your sanity and go through with your mental health in place. And so those 2 I'll be talking about coming up here in the next few weeks, and
okay.
And then I'll record a new recording and people can pick and choose. Great. All right, Peter. So when you're not doing admissions and you're not writing books, how do you relax? How do you unwind? How do you chill?
Well, I hang out with my grandkids. I have 2 grandsons and 1 granddaughter. And my wife and I are addicted to watching Hallmark shows. I probably shouldn't admit that one.
It's okay.
That's
all good.
About it. I'm kind of a workaholic.
What's something on your bucket list? Something you hope to either experience or a place to go that you haven't been to that you hope to check off the checklist before you pass on?
Yeah, I've never been out of the United States.
Never?
Oh, never.
Not even Canada?
No, not even Canada.
Mexico? Nothing?
I could see it. I was in El Paso and I could see it. I did not. I saw the tires burning. No.
So is it a goal to do that one time?
England. I'd like to go to England.
There you go. What do you wish your 18-year-old self knew?
Oh, wow.
That's a deep one, isn't it?
That's a real deep one. Can I pass?
Yeah. If
you're not going to let me pass.
If you're drawing a blank, you can pass. I'm not going to make you answer it. I tell my students when I'm doing interview prep with them, I'm like, if you get a hard question, say, is it all right if we come back to that one? I said, no, I've never, ever heard of a story of someone saying, Charles, answer it now. So we'll give you a pass if you can't think of anything,
Please.
Final question. What is your advice to students, parents, and college counselors? Those are our 3 main groups to listen in our listening body. Parents is our largest group. College counselors second, students third.
So you want advice three separate forms of advice?
Some people have said this dose of advice applies to all of every group, and some people do it individually. You take it where you want to go.
For students, just be open-minded in this whole process to different types of institutions to go to. And for parents, it will be the best investment you've ever made. You may not know that now, but it really is. It's worth making a little bit of an extra of a sacrifice for your kids. You've been doing it their whole lives. Don't stop now.
Awesome.
And for counselors, just don't pay as much attention to rankings and popularity contests among colleges and universities. Just investigate them and give students lots of options along the way.
Peter, this has been awesome. Tell our listeners where they can find your books. If their itch has been scratched and they're like, I may not send in a question, but I still want to know I want to read the book now. I don't want to wait. Or I want to explore all of those books Peter's written. Where can they get your books and which ones are still in print?
Well, if you go into Amazon
Mhm.
and just type in V, first name is Vernon, but I don't use that, V Peter Pitts books, and you will see the whole list pop up. And they're all way too reasonably priced.
Oh, they just reflect the fact that you're trying to help people.
Yeah,
Good for you.
they're very, very reasonably priced. So
Peter, thank you for being so generous and giving us 90 minutes of your time today.
thank you very much. Pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, I wish you all the best, and let's see what we can do to get your book into some more people's hands.
Thank you.
Friends, after the interview, Peter got back to me with a written answer to my question. Remember I asked Peter, what do you wish your 18-year-old self knew? And he drew a blank at the time. Well, he got back to me and he said, at 18, I wish I had gone all 4 years to one college instead of 2 years to one and 2 years to a different one. Friends, after the interview, I was upset with myself because I didn't ask Peter a question I thought of after the interview. And I thought the question was kind of important. And I've done this before. And I was like, oh, well, whatever. But I said to myself, you know what? I could email Peter. So I emailed Peter and I asked him in writing. And he answered. So what was the question? I said, Peter, I meant to ask you a question I sometimes get asked by parents. And the question goes like this. I don't want my kid to have to go through the rest of his life explain to others where he went to college if they go somewhere no one has heard of. So I said, Peter, how do you recommend I respond the next time I'm asked that question? This was Peter's response. I've gotten through life just fine telling people about Wartburg and Monmouth. It hasn't hindered me at all. Experiences and outcomes should trump the name of a college. This question, if you're asked it, gives a person a chance to educate the public about some awesome colleges. On Thursday's episode, Ellen and Kate, final part of the Facebook discussion. Are these college parent Facebook groups a good thing or are they toxic? Then we'll have a brand new interview, and it's with Elliot Felix, and we'll be looking at his new book, The Connected College. And then we'll have a brand new interview, and it's with two of my students, Daniela from the Philly suburbs, a recent grad of UPenn, who's now first-year medical school student, and Summer, a junior from Chicago, who's an engineering student at UPenn, and has also been accepted into their 5-year master's program in engineering. So I told you I'm trying a couple new things this year, and one is this new type of spotlight. I'm curious if you see it, find it to be helpful. I'm doing deep dives with current students as a way of getting to the culture, the strengths, the weaknesses of a college, trying to get beyond the marketing to try to give you a feel of what it's like to be a student at these schools. I really welcome your feedback on this new type of college spotlight. I plan on doing at least 6 of these in 2026, but I might do 10 or even more, depending on the feedback I get. And if they're working for you, then we'll keep doing these in 27 and 28. Once again, the goal is to get beyond the marketing and let you see a college the way students experience it. Well, friends, it's been 3 weeks, and I have something to say. Because the last couple of weeks, I chose to highlight Martin Luther King and some of his famous quotes. But I'm feeling the itch. So here it goes. You know, friends, it's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's not where you go. But it's what you do when you get there, and it's what you do when you get out of there. That is what will determine your career success. See you on Thursday, friends. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut, Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stylionis Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.